Picture this: Earth, 4.5 billion years ago. It wasn't the pale blue dot we know today. It was a fiery ball of molten rock and volcanoes, spewing lava and gases. Asteroids and comets constantly bombarded the planet's surface. But how did this fiery hellscape transform into the life-sustaining planet we know? Over millions of years, Earth began to cool. The molten rock solidified into a solid crust. Volcanoes continued to erupt, releasing gases that formed the early atmosphere. It lacked oxygen and was mostly composed of carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia. As Earth continued to cool, something incredible happened. Water vapor in the atmosphere condensed, forming clouds. Then came the rain. For millions of years, rain poured down on the cooling planet, filling the first oceans. These early oceans were hot, acidic, and full of dissolved minerals. Within these primordial seas, the stage was set for life to emerge. Imagine a world covered in water, steaming hot and full of strange chemicals. That was Earth billions of years ago. As the planet cooled, the water vapor in the atmosphere condensed, like rain on a cold window. But this rain didn't stop for millions of years, forming vast oceans. These were not the inviting oceans we know today. They were more like giant science experiments, bubbling with chemicals and energy. Deep in these oceans, near volcanic vents, something special was happening. These vents spewed out heat, gases, and minerals from the Earth's core. Scientists believe that in this chaotic and energy-rich environment, the first building blocks of life emerged. These building blocks were simple organic molecules like amino acids. The formation of these building blocks was a crucial step in the journey towards life. Remember those amino acids, the tiny Lego blocks of life we talked about? They're made from even smaller atoms like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. These atoms are the basic ingredients of everything around us, from the air we breathe to the food we eat. And guess what? These ingredients weren't just present on early Earth, they were abundant. Think of early Earth as a giant kitchen. You have your heat from volcanoes and lightning, your water from the newly formed oceans, and all these basic ingredients floating around. All you need is a little recipe, a specific set of conditions, and boom, you get the building blocks of life. Scientists believe that these building blocks formed spontaneously in the early Earth's environment. Similarly, the intense energy and unique chemical environment of early Earth provided the perfect conditions for simple molecules to collide, react, and form more complex ones. Now you might be thinking, that's pretty cool, but how do we know this is how it happened? Well, scientists have found evidence of these building blocks in meteorites that have landed on Earth. These space rocks offer a glimpse into the early solar system's composition and support the idea that these molecules were prevalent even before Earth was formed. In the 1950s, two scientists named Stanley Miller and Harold Urey decided to recreate the conditions of early Earth in a lab. They wanted to see if they could create those essential building blocks of life we talked about. Imagine a giant chemistry set with flasks, tubes, and electrodes. They filled it with water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen, the same gases thought to be present in Earth's early atmosphere. Then, they simulated lightning with electric sparks. The results were astonishing. After just a week, the mixture turned a murky brown. When they analyzed it, they found amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. This groundbreaking experiment showed that it was possible to create the basic ingredients of life from simple molecules and conditions thought to exist on early Earth. The Miller-Urey experiment was a game-changer. It didn't create life itself, but it demonstrated that the essential building blocks could arise from non-living matter under the right conditions. Of course, the early Earth was far more complex than a lab experiment. Many other factors contributed to the emergence of life. But the Miller-Urey experiment sparked a revolution in our understanding of life's origins. Section 5. The first Earthlings. So we have the building blocks, the amino acids forming in the primordial soup. But how did we go from those simple molecules to actual living, breathing, well, not breathing yet, organisms? That's where things get really interesting. Scientists believe the next step involved the formation of something called protocells. Imagine a tiny bubble, like a soap bubble, forming in the primordial soup. These bubbles, or protocells, weren't alive in the way we think of it, but they had some amazing properties. They could enclose molecules within their membrane, creating a separate internal environment. This allowed them to concentrate molecules and carry out simple chemical reactions, like absorbing energy and replicating themselves. These protocells were like tiny laboratories where the first experiments in life were taking place. Over millions of years they evolved and became more complex. They developed the ability to store genetic information using molecules like RNA and eventually DNA. This genetic information allowed them to pass on their characteristics to their offspring, driving the process of evolution. The first true Earthlings were single-celled organisms, similar to bacteria. They were the pioneers of life on Earth, paving the way for the incredible diversity of life we see today. Section 6. Oxygen. Too much of a good thing? We often think of oxygen as essential for life. After all, we need it to breathe. But for the first life forms on Earth, oxygen was actually toxic. Remember, the early atmosphere had very little oxygen. Early life forms thrived in this oxygen-free environment. But then, around 2.4 billion years ago, something dramatic happened, the Great Oxidation Event. A new type of organism evolved, cyanobacteria. These tiny organisms developed the ability to photosynthesize, using sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into energy, and releasing oxygen as a byproduct. Cyanobacteria were incredibly successful, and spread rapidly throughout the oceans, pumping out vast amounts of oxygen. This oxygen revolution had a profound impact on life on Earth. For many anaerobic organisms, oxygen was poisonous. They couldn't survive in the newly oxygenated atmosphere and oceans and either died out or were relegated to oxygen-free environments. But for other organisms, oxygen was a game changer. Section 7. The little guys team up. For billions of years, single-celled organisms ruled the Earth. But then, something remarkable happened. These tiny loners discovered the power of teamwork. Around 2 billion years ago, the first eukaryotic cells emerged. These cells were larger and more complex than their bacterial counterparts, with a nucleus to house their DNA and other specialized structures called organelles. How did these more complex cells evolve? The leading theory is endosymbiosis. Imagine one single-celled organism engulfing another, but instead of digesting it, it kept it around as a partner. This partnership proved to be beneficial for both parties. The engulfed cell might have been able to produce energy more efficiently, while the host cell provided a safe and stable environment. Over time, this partnership became so intertwined that the two cells became inseparable, forming a single organism. The evolution of eukaryotic cells was a major leap forward in the history of life. Section 8. From single cells to you and me. We've gone from a fiery planet to bubbling oceans, from simple molecules to complex cells. Now hold on to your hats because we're entering the realm of multicellular life. The first multicellular organisms were simple, probably just clumps of identical cells. But over time, these clumps began to specialize. Some cells became responsible for feeding, others for movement, and others for reproduction. This division of labor allowed multicellular organisms to grow larger, move more efficiently, and exploit new resources. It also led to the evolution of tissues, organs, and organ systems, increasing the complexity and diversity of life on Earth. From the first simple multicellular organisms, a whole new world of possibilities opened up. Over millions of years, these early multicellular pioneers diversified into an astonishing array of forms, eventually giving rise to all the plants, animals, fungi, and other multicellular organisms we see today. Section 9. Are we alone? A universe of possibilities. We've traced the epic journey of life on Earth from its fiery beginnings to the incredible diversity we see today. But this is just one planet, orbiting one star in one galaxy among billions of galaxies in the observable universe. So, the big question is, are we alone? We don't have a definitive answer yet, but the sheer vastness of the cosmos suggests that life beyond Earth is not just possible, but probable. If the conditions were right for life to arise on our planet, why not on countless other planets orbiting other stars? The universe is a vast cosmic ocean of possibilities, and we are just beginning to dip our toes into the shallows. Scientists are actively searching for signs of life beyond Earth, from studying the atmospheres of distant planets to listening for signals from intelligent civilizations. While we haven't found conclusive evidence yet, the search itself is a testament to our innate curiosity and our desire to understand our place in the universe. The story of life on Earth is a story of resilience, adaptation, and the incredible power of evolution.